It's unclear why comparing China and India has become a hot topic. After more than a decade of hype about India replacing China as the next superpower, the next world factory, and the next tech powerhouse, people's enthusiasm has gradually faded. China has indeed become a superpower capable of comprehensively confronting the US. However, India remains the same old India. It forever lives in the fantasy of becoming powerful in the future and dominating various rankings decades from now. The IT powerhouse that Indians once took pride in appears utterly laughable compared to Chinese companies like TikTok, DeepSeek, Huawei, BYD, DJI, and Unitree. Occupying Silicon Valley and exporting CEOs has not elevated India's influence in the tech world. On the contrary, it is destroying the US tech hegemony at an astonishing speed. The last technological stronghold the US relies on is the AI and chip industries. These industries depend entirely on Chinese-American elites for competition. The tech war between the US and China feels more like an internal conflict among Chinese people. The core AI technical staff at giants like OpenAI, xAI, and Meta are mostly Chinese. Chip giants like AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA, as well as TSMC, which the US heavily depends on, are led by Chinese individuals. Indian elites occupy numerous CEO positions in Silicon Valley. However, they have been completely marginalized in this tech war that will shape the future global tech landscape. As two population superpowers, China and India produce countless elites every year. I have never believed in racial superiority claims, even though data suggests the average IQ in India is 76, while in China it is around 105. More importantly, I believe the different cultures of the two countries have led to starkly different development paths. These paths have produced starkly different outcomes. I mentioned in a previous video that Chinese people work, while Indian people talk. Take Silicon Valley as an example. Chinese engineers tend to be diligent and disciplined. They focus on completing tasks assigned by their superiors. They lack the desire for self-promotion and are often reluctant to get involved in administrative affairs. As a result, they may work hard and produce significant results. However, their superiors often don't notice. Indian engineers generally enjoy boasting and exaggerating their abilities and achievements. They are more vocal in company meetings. Consequently, they often secure better positions despite having technical skills far inferior to their Chinese colleagues. They also tend to form cliques and recruit more Indians into the company to occupy key roles. This effectively hijacks the organization. Other groups, including Chinese employees, often face suppression. They have far fewer opportunities for advancement compared to Indians. For a considerable period in the past, this approach was effective. The United States monopolized the global high-tech industry. Silicon Valley's influence was unmatched. The US faced a fragmented Europe, small-scale Japan and South Korea, and a stagnant Russia. This gave the US an overwhelming advantage. US tech companies reaped the dividends of the Internet revolution. As providers of Internet infrastructure, most US companies didn't need intense innovation. Maintaining stability was enough to generate massive profits continuously. For example, Microsoft hasn't released a major innovative product in years. Yet, it can lie back and make money thanks to its monopoly on Windows and Office. After Google's founders stepped back, the company relied on its core businesses: search engine, YouTube, Android, and Gmail. These brought monopolistic profits. Both companies have Indian CEOs, and their financial reports look impressive. However, they both missed the AI revolution. Microsoft relies on OpenAI. Google was once a leader in AI, but has been thoroughly outclassed by OpenAI. It even lags behind innovative players like xAI and DeepSeek. Google once proposed the Transformer architecture and invented AlphaGo. It boasted the world's strongest AI team. Now, It has been reduced to a second-rate player that relies on PPTs for self-promotion. Its projects, from Bard to Gemini, have all failed. These two companies once changed the course of human tech history. Now, they have become symbols of complacency. Both have an Indian CEO and a large Indian management team occupying numerous key positions. It must be noted that Google and Microsoft are the two companies where Indian CEOs have achieved the best results. Many other U.S. tech giants have faced significant difficulties after becoming Indianized. Examples include Boeing, Twitter, and Starbucks. Under the fierce competition from Chinese companies, Silicon Valley's tech hegemony is declining at a visible pace. Chinese innovative apps like TikTok, DeepSeek, Temu, Shine, and CapCut are flooding the U.S. market. They attract hordes of users. ByteDance TikTok has become the largest short video platform in the U.S. The U.S. government has threatened to ban it unless it's sold. CapCut quickly became the most popular editing software after its release. DeepSeek's launch sent shockwaves through the entire AI industry. It caused AI concept stocks to plummet. In the hardware sector, Americans have already lost the ability to compete with China. 3DR Robotics once competed with DJI for drone leadership but was utterly defeated. It shifted to software. Boston Dynamics, famous for its robotic dogs, has long fallen from its pedestal. It faces an onslaught from Chinese companies like Unitree and Deep Robotics. Even Tesla, the symbol of electric vehicles, is rapidly declining. It faces strong competition from Chinese EV companies like BYD. If the U.S. government didn't restrict Chinese companies' entry into the U.S. market on national security grounds, the U.S. tech industry would face an unimaginable crisis. Of course, Silicon Valley's decline cannot be simply blamed on Indians. However, Indian engineers bear significant responsibility. We need to discuss why the once stable Silicon Valley model no longer competes with China. In that model, Indian elites talked big with PPTs, while Chinese engineers worked hard. The reason is simple. When Silicon Valley's Indianization began, China's economic and technological development levels were still insufficient. The quality and quantity of its talent were still in the accumulation phase. After joining the WTO, China quickly became the world's top industrial powerhouse. It built a complete supply chain and earned substantial profits by screwing bolts for Americans. Chinese people invested this money in education, research, and infrastructure construction. They improved logistics efficiency. This formed a compounding advantage that led to exponential leaps in industrial technology. Meanwhile, the US and India were immersed in illusions of a rosy future. Americans believed their tech hegemony was unchallenged. Indian CEOs kept winning over investors with slick PPTs and optimized financial reports. They introduced more Indian elites to management roles in other companies. Indian elites at home were also steeped in optimism. They believed India was far stronger than China in IT. They thought India didn't need to screw bolts on production lines like the Chinese. Becoming the world's office was a better choice. The large number of Indian CEOs in Silicon Valley proved the success of India's education system. With this talent advantage, surpassing China was only a matter of time. However, there are no shortcuts in technological development. Even a powerful country like the United States isn't entitled to rest on its past laurels. India only talks big and lacks action. When the tide recedes, the world will see it as bare-assed. Tech competition boils down to a comprehensive contest of talent, capital, and infrastructure. While the US and India were lost in their fantasies for over a decade, Chinese people trained more engineers. They amassed more capital and built world-class infrastructure. As a result, Chinese companies, hardened by brutal domestic competition, ventured overseas. They often found their opponents to be pushovers. Even once mighty U.S. companies couldn't keep up with the Chinese offensive pace. BYD's comeback against Tesla was a hard-fought victory. Both sides were at least evenly matched. However, products from Chinese companies like DJI and Unitree were practically a dimensional strike against competitors. Take DJI as an example. Its U.S. rival, 3DR Robotics, appeared to have competed with DJI. In reality, it was unilaterally crushed. It never came close to DJI in hardware stability or flight control systems. DJI's main competitive pressure comes almost entirely from Chinese peers. DJI's success stems from its strong R&D capabilities and deep engineer culture. China's complete and efficient supply chain also plays a crucial role. In the drone industry, leaving China, or more specifically Shenzhen, makes it impossible to nurture a top-tier company. Take power batteries, a non-core component in drones. As an example, outside China, no place can offer high-cost performance suppliers. The development of power batteries relies on support from other industrial applications like electric vehicles. Without China, a country with a full industrial chain, innovation in drones, EVs, and robots is far less efficient. The massive rout in the hardware sector has forced U.S. companies to retreat to software. They control operating systems, productivity software, social media, and large AI models, among other core technologies. However, phenomenal applications like Harmony OS, TikTok, CapCut, and DeepSeek quickly shattered American illusions. Advanced chip manufacturing processes and U.S. government bans have become Silicon Valley's last shield. Clearly, Indians have not grasped the essence of tech competition. They are obsessed with talking big. This has brought them significant benefits, as they've come to dominate Silicon Valley. However, any competition demands results. Without China as a challenger, Indian elites could occupy Silicon Valley and sip victory champagne. Now, the U.S. is falling behind in the tech war with China. The massive bubble valuations of U.S. tech companies face the risk of re-examination. Under the relentless pressure from Chinese companies, Silicon Valley investors and American bosses have no choice but to rethink the pros and cons of Indianization. In India itself, blind optimism and delusions of surpassing China are being brutally whipped by harsh reality. India lacks infrastructure, capital reserves, and genuine talent. In hot tech fields like drones, electric vehicles, renewable energy, robots, and AI, it can only talk on paper and entertain itself. Facing one Chinese technological achievement after another, Indians can only awkwardly endure the world's merciless mockery. The so-called India versus China is merely a one-sided crushing. Perhaps soon, Indians will not only lose Silicon Valley, but also miss the chance for industrialization at home. They will remain forever trapped in ignorant fantasies about the future.